Today I'm going to show you how to take a terribly lit room and turn it into something a lot more bright, fun, and smart. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to Tech with Brett, where I help tech work for you. Since we purchased this home, I have really wanted to change out these little spotlights to can lights. And a few years ago, my buddy Chad showed me how to do this, so I decided last night, today is the day, and I'm also gonna see if we can put some accent lighting under here too. First, let's take a look at the products we will be using today. So I picked up this 6-inch LED slim color changing recess kit. All you have to do with these is you cut a hole in your ceiling, you then wire these into the junction box, choose your color, and then you are able to install them. Now these have 800 lumens, 12 watts, and I like that you can change the color. And I really like these because they don't use a can like typical can lights, so they're pretty easy to get installed. Here I purchased some 14-2 wire. I'm going to use a Lutron Caseta dimmer. These cans are dimmable, and this is one of the recommended products to use. And here I purchased a Milwaukee hole cutter. This will allow me to easily cut in the cans. And then I'm also using my drill as well as a sheetrock knife. I'm also using some long drill bits. I probably should have got a little more longer than these. And I'll also have some wire cutters and so on. Now the first step is to plan out your can lights. So here I drew a little diagram of my room. It's about 18 by 18. I took some pictures and then I found this blog where it helps you lay out your cans. Now first you just choose what pattern you want. You choose the size of your room and then calculate, and it gives you the calculations on where you should put each can to have them all lined up. He also goes into how many cans you need per square footage and so on. Now I guess there's really no specifics on exactly where they need to be, but this pointed me in the right direction. Inside the box of these cans, there are little cutouts that you can put on the ceiling. I ended up just cutting out paper, but this helped me align exactly where I wanted my cans to go. So this gave me an idea of where each light would be. In the end, I took out the little drop down from my calculations and made the rest of it like a little room. And I put mine about 3 feet away from the wall, 29 inches from one wall. And I just moved them around until everything looked great. And then I did some final measuring, measured twice, cut only one hole. And then I also checked for studs. Now I wasn't very diligent with this, but the good news is with these new slim cans, you can actually put them in if you do run into a stud. So maybe you're installing cans somewhere and you run into a stud. This could be a good solution without having to cut and drill a new hole and patch up the other one. So now that we are ready to install our cans, the first thing to do would be to turn off the power and then start drilling the holes. Now this hole cutter was actually really easy to use. All you need to do to adjust the size is to pull out the bit, and then you are able to move it, and you move each side, make sure that they're aligned properly, and then make sure there's enough room for the can to fit inside the hole, or you're gonna have to do some extra cutting, which isn't really fun. The kit I used also comes with this dust collector, which is a must when doing this job. And you may also need to use a jerry rig everything knife where available. This time it did work a bit better, but I did run into the stud a little bit. And the third time, this is where it kind of got bad. So I definitely recommend watching out for joists at all costs. Now this is in the basement. If you're doing this upstairs, there may be a lot of insulation. These wafers are IC rated, but if you use regular cans, make sure they have IC rating. Now once you have all of your holes drilled, the next step is to remove your old fixture so that you can pull the wiring from there to power your new canned lights. Now again, I do have the power off, and you can get a voltage tester to make sure there is nothing coming through here before you take this off. While I'm waiting for my drill's battery to charge, I'm gonna start doing some of the wiring. This is probably going to be the hardest part because I'm going to have to wire through each of the beams that are here that support the roof. So I need to drill through each of them. And so it's a few feet between them. I might need to go get a different bit to drill through, but essentially is what we're gonna do is just pull in the wire, which is right here. I'm gonna see if I can pull it through. I can kind of get to the ceiling up here. So I'm gonna pull it through there. And then I'm going to put wiring, one wire to each hole. So one wire to there, then a wire from here to the next hole, then a wire from there to the next hole, and chain them all together so they all complete the circuit with just one solid connection. So here we go. So this first one, all we're going to do is put the wiring through, and then we're going to fish it to the other end and pull it through and then cut off the wire. So every hole should have 2 wires in it, and then the last hole, it doesn't need to connect to anything else, so it will only have 1 wire. One down, a lot more to go. Getting the Romex where it needs to be is certainly the hardest part of this process. So here I'm using a hanger wire to fish different wires through. This is actually where I'm going to be starting the wiring. And then I picked up this flexible drill bit, and I also picked up this fishing pole to make it easier to pull all the wires through. This has 3 different sets that are about 5 feet long, and it seemed to do the trick. Now, when I was following the direction of the joist, things were going really smooth. But then I do need to go the other way in 2 places to get the wiring to all of the holes. So here, this is where I needed to use my extension bit, and they just weren't long enough. Now, I'll leave a link to one in the description below that you could use that might do a better job, but I ended up having to cut a few holes in the ceiling so that I could drill the holes in the joist to pull all the wiring through. So now we have the wiring coming in, and then we have the wiring going to the second can, then to the third can, and then we're going to go to the 4th can here, and then that's going back down to the 5th can, then that's going to the 6th can, and now I need to do the same thing to go to the 7th can, and that one's already connected to the 8th, and then that one is connected to the 9th. So this is my final can, which is only going to have 1 wire coming through. Now this is the final spot that I needed to wire. I ended up drilling 3 different holes because there was actually some HVAC that I needed to get around. So you do need to be careful if you're drilling any holes to walls or drilling through the joist that there's no HVAC in the way. Also double check for plumbing before you do this as well, so that you don't have any extra issues that you do have to fix when you're done. Now that the final piece of wiring is in, we are ready to wire in the cans. Now taking a look at these cans, or some people call them wafers, here we have a junction box which is tied into the can. So now we just need to wire the incoming electricity into here and then wire the outgoing as well, snap it shut, and then we'll snap them into place. Now if you haven't done wiring before, it's pretty simple to do. All you need to do is strip the ends of one wire and put them through one of these holes, and then you're going to push them tightly into the color that they match with. So you have the black wire for black, white for white, and then the green is the ground, which is the unsheathed copper wire. Once we have that firmly in place, we're then going to strip the next cable, and then we're going to put it in as well. Now there are 2 extra connections you have on each of these. If you do put one in the wrong place, you simply pull and twist back and forth to remove it, and then you can put it in the right place. Once we have the wiring in, we then just need to close the junction box tightly, and then we just need to place it up here in the ceiling. And then you'll notice that there is a little tab that connects these together. These do have a 34-year lifespan, so you could easily pull off the light and put a new one on if they die. And then here we have the option to adjust what temperature we want the lighting to be. And then all we need to do is push up these clips, put them up into the ceiling, and then they will press down on the sheetrock, and we put this into place. Now I do have the beam here that's kind of in the way, so I need to cut that down a little bit, but then they will sit flush and they look great. Now let's take a look at the color options. So first we have 5000K, then we have 4000K, then we have 3500K, we have 3000K, and 2700K. And again, these will manually need to be switched on each of the lights. There is no smart function to those. We ended up choosing the 4000K. And now I'm going to copy the same process to the rest of the wafer lights, putting in one end, putting in the other end, and then going to the next light and repeating the process until I have completed the whole circuit that goes all the way to the end. And here is the final wafer. You can see that when it is done, it is completely flush against the ceiling and it looks great. So now it's time to turn back on the power, turn on the lights, and wow, the room looks so much brighter. Ignore the holes in the ceiling, but you can see how much better this room lighting is. Now there is one more thing to do, which is to fix the holes in the ceiling, and let's do that right now. And here you can see the finished room, patched all of the holes. It did take me 2 weekends to finish the room, but I would say it is totally worth it. Now I said we're gonna make these smart, and we're going to do that with the Caseta wireless dimmer. Now I already do have a bridge in my home that this will work with, but here is a list of other compatible dimmers that you could use in case you want to make your new Wafer lights dimmable. And then for the wiring, it is actually pretty simple. We just need to wire nut the ground together. And this is a single pole switch, so we're going to tie in the line, and then we're gonna tie in the load, put the light switch back into place. And for a nice finished look, I ended up taking the Pico remote for my Serena shades and putting them together with a nice screwless plate. All right, it is now time for the big reveal of the new canned lights. Hey Google, turn on family room cans. And just like that, the project is now complete. Here you can see we have the 9 different cans illuminating the whole room, and it just looks absolutely amazing. It is so bright and vibrant. I'm very impressed with what these lights could do. When we first turned them on, it reminded me of somebody who had just purchased a brand new home, helping them move in and realizing, wow, their lighting looks so good, comparing it to my own house, which has always looked really bad. So now with these new Wafer lights, 9 was the perfect amount for this room. It is an 18 by 18 foot room, and they look really, really good. Now I do love having the option to be able to dim them. Sometimes we may not want it this bright. So now, because I've added the Lutron dimmer, I'm able to ask Google to change the brightness. Hey Google, set the lights to 10% brightness. So there you can see, you can even dim them quite a bit so it's not so blinding in the room. Hey Google, set the lights to 50% brightness. And there you go, 50% is even pretty good brightness, and I can go all the way up to 100. Now over here, I did end up putting in 2 more can lights. So these I did real cans, and then I did some recessed lights from Philips Hue, so I have the option to change them. And here I have a knob where I can adjust the brightness there, and I can easily turn those on and off. And because of the Aurora by Lutron, I'm able to keep them on 100% of the time, so that there's never the problem where the light switch is turned off and they're disconnected. So I plan to use those a lot more when I connect a Philips Hue sync box, so that they'll work with the TV, but that's another video. Set the lights to 100%. So overall, I'm extremely impressed by the Commercial Electric Slim Recess Kit. I loved how easy these were to install. You just cut the hole, do the wiring, and put them back in, and you are done. One of the problems with doing can lights with the can is it does take a little bit of work to get the can in there, and then if you run into a stud or something, then you just have a whole another set of problems, where here I probably should have paid attention to where the studs were a little bit more, but as I moved down the room, it got worse and worse. So here it was fine, but by the end of the room, it was offset where I was in the joist right there. So these I had no issue installing because of that problem. So I'd highly recommend picking up some of these if you are running into that issue where you have the joists. The one thing is you can't change the color with the Smart Assistant, which I don't think that's a huge problem. Usually we just want the color of the bulbs to always be the same, but it is nice that you do have those different options. Now, taking a look at the before and after of this room, it is just night and day, like literally. It was so dark before. Having the 4 little spotlights in here, adding all of these cans makes it so much more bright. We actually like to spend time in this room together now instead of feeling like we're in the dungeon. My kids love coming down here. I have these set up so they automatically turn on when the sun sets, so they come down here and play, and they can actually see the toys they're playing with. So it's been the improvement we really wanted to see in this room. Now, if you've never installed can lights, it does take a little bit of work. It takes some tools and some know-how, but I would highly recommend, if you're looking to complete a project like this, to try it out, and the end result is totally worth it. If you want to learn more about this type of canned lights, I'll leave a link in the description below, and if you have any further questions, you can let me know down in the comments. Now, I've also done a video about the shades over here, so you can check those out on the side, and if you want to see what it's like having Caseta wireless in your whole home, you can check out the video down here. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.